Hey folks, Dave from Nerdarchy, for nerds, by nerds, and today I have Jeff with me from True Dungeon. How are you doing today?
I am doing great. Thanks for having me on.
And as always, folks, the links are in the description, so you can click away and stalk Jeff and True Dungeon anywhere on the interwebs you like. So you had reached out to us a bit ago to pop on again. So I think you have something you want to talk about.
Oh yeah, we got a lot of stuff going on this summer. It's our busy season. Yeah, we've got two big events coming up. The first one is next month in the middle of June in Columbus, Ohio. It's Origins Game Fair. It's really nice mid-sized con. It's real easy to put around in and a lot less crowded than some of the cons. We are ending our big adventure season there. So this is the last chance people have to play the Patrick Rothfuss inspired adventures that we made with him, based in his world. We also have a brand new one we've never shown anywhere. It's an astral adventure. It's enhanced, so to speak. It's the highest level we've ever done, and we've got some amazing sets. It's crazy what people are going to see.
Enhanced. What does that even mean? I want to
And
thank Brenton for the super chat. Appreciate it, bud.
Sure. Enhanced. Well, that's the best adjective I think I could come up with. It's basically now we have the space and the funding to take the sets and the props to a higher level that we've ever done before. The astral sets are amazing. You're going to blow people away. We spent a lot of money and did a lot of experimenting, but it's going to be pretty crazy when people see it. And then also we've got upgraded the costumes. We're buying these $1,000, $1,200 full body costumes from some pro haunters that I know. So the costumes are amazing now as well. And the rooms are bigger. Everything's themed. We used to kind of have this like no man's land between rooms area that was just like black curtains. You're like supposedly going from chapter to chapter in the adventure, and now all that's themed, so there's no like let up in the immersion. Everything is themed all the way through.
So by haunters, I'm going to assume you mean professional costumers that do like the I guess like the haunted hay rides and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, there's actually a pretty large industry out there. There's a couple of shows in Midwest that you can go to, and all these haunt vendors come. And there's some really very talented, passionate people that love to make costumes and props, and they sell their stuff at fairly reasonable rates because they just love to be able to do this. So we get some amazing stuff from the haunt industry.
So let's backtrack just a little bit, just in case someone is not familiar with what we're talking about, which is True Dungeon, which is basically an event that happens at many of these other events you're visiting, convention,
Sure.
yeah, the convention circuits. So, what is True Dungeon for the newbie?
For the newbie, well, it's our 16th year doing it. So it started as just basically a desire to create a live action Dungeons and Dragons adventure. Always wanted to play in one. I got a chance to be able to put one together. And so we kind of did it in what we would want to do. Over the years, it's slowly kind of morphed into more of a general, just fantasy adventure with the, when all the Harry Potter and, Game of Thrones now, the medieval fantasy is this huge genre that a lot of people love. And so we kind of pivoted a little bit and made it a little bit D&D specific. But now basically for 2 hours, you're immersed in this walking like escape room type environment. Instead of one room though, there's 7 rooms that you got to go through, and you have to overcome sometimes it's physical challenges like getting out of a locked jail cell, to solving a room-sized puzzle, to fighting some animatronic monsters. And through all that, you basically get to live through a medieval fantasy adventure.
Did last time you were on, did you say something about you guys are doing something with Forgotten Realms?
No, we've been talking about it and other things with the people at WotC, but right now there's no plans. Right now.
Okay, I had your partner on not too long ago as well.
Sure.
Alex, and we were talking about some things. So maybe blurring things between the two of you as well.
Sure. Understandable.
So, I was wondering earlier, you know, when I was setting up the live chat, I was looking for images or whatever. I know you guys have had some celebrities come through. Do you have like a list of all, you know, the different celebrities that have been through?
Yeah, we've had a lot of authors, you know, like Patrick Rothfuss has played several times, Scalzi, and we had a whole list, a bunch of those. Will Wheaton's played several times, a couple other folks, but we don't really try to go out there and try to find people to play. Usually, like they're like guests of honor at the show, and they find out we're there and they want to play, and we can usually get them in. So it's fun, especially Will played with us first, like way back when we like in our first couple of years, and wrote up a nice review of us for Dungeon Magazine back in the day with his column. And so he's always been a friend of the event. He's played several times, and Pat played once. He was a guest of honor at Gen Con for the author guest of honor. He played and has played every time he's come to Gen Con. So that's about it, though.
Will Wheaton had a column in Dungeon? I didn't realize that.
Yeah, back in the day, 2004 and 5, back at Dungeon, he had a column at the back, and just one time he decided to write about his fun he had playing True Dungeon at Gen Con SoCal. I think it was 2003 or 4.
Okay, cool. I was more of a dragon reader than dungeon reader.
Sure, yeah, me too. I remember one that was called The Dragon, so
yeah,
back in the day.
Yeah, I used to double up on a lot of the issues. My wife just happened to work at a magazine publication company or distribution company, and she would get like all the different magazines. And I had a subscription anyway, so I'd always end up with doubles. I do miss that. Yeah,
back in the day, early 80s, that there was nothing coming out from TSR. The Dragon was like the only thing out that was people would just devour it because we were so hungry for new material, and anything we could get our hands on, Dragon was like a awesome thing every month.
It's you know, it's not like they have Dragon Plus now, right? And I pretty much almost never look at that. It's just not the same for me. Receiving that magazine in the mail every month was great. Like, it's cool. Like, we have the internet at our disposal right now, so we can like look up anything we want, which is awesome. But things like Dragon Magazine, they gave you the things you needed that you didn't know you needed.
Yeah, and there's something to be said for the delayed gratification of getting something physical. I mean, I used to play play-by-mail games back in the 80s and 90s before the internet came along, and that is, sadly, I don't think anybody much does it anymore. I think it's all done over the internet. But there's something really fun about playing a game through the mail that takes, turns take 3 weeks, because that gives you time we would like write postcards and letters to our allies and try to form big battle plans and that kind of thing. It was a lot of fun. So
it looks like you have an ally in the chat. Lori's in there answering questions. DM Don had asked a question. So each session or year is a different adventure, correct?
Yeah, this year we have at Gen Con, or at Origins, we have actually like roughly 3 different adventures, and they're all different. And then we make brand new ones every year. We this year, starting at Gen Con, we'll have 3 adventures, and we'll take that on the road to Madness and back out in January, and then Origins again in June, and then we'll start all over again in the next year. We've got an ongoing multi-year story arc that we plan out, and this is the 3rd year we're coming up on our 4-year story arc, and they're chasing this bad guy through a bunch of different planes of existence.
Nice. So if I go to a different event in True Dungeon, is it always a different True Dungeon, different adventures?
Well, like if you come to, let's say you come to Origins next month and you play what's called N1, that's the first module, that's the Astral. You can then play N2 like at Gen Con, and then a couple months later you could play N3 at GameholeCon, and they'd roughly be the same thing you would experience if you had played all three of them like at Gen Con. So they're pretty much the same. Once we've got them set, we take them on the road and we tweak them based on what feedback we get from players. They generally get better as we go. But the big thing about Gen Con is we have like 50 people that help us put it together for 3 full days, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So we're able to create a pretty amazing event there that we can't really do at other spots just because of the time setup we have and we don't have as many volunteers. So if you get a chance, Gen Con is the one that's really the grandfather of the thing that we can really see it at its fullest. But we're still going to put on an awesome show at Origins too. I think people are going to really get blown away when they play the Astral Adventure.
Is Gen Con where you guys actually have access to most space?
Well, that's kind of funny. It's actually the least amount. It's just the Gen Con's so popular, they've expanded and they've pretty much gobbled up every available space in at the ICC and Lucas Oil Stadium. So there is no place for us other to go. There's no place bigger. At other shows, we actually have slightly more room. At Origins, we got a lot more room, but it's just a factor of the popularity of Gen Con. So we're still able to put on a really good show at Gen Con, though.
So I think it's funny when you call Origins like a mid-sized convention, and I guess that's true for the gaming industry.
Sure.
But but it's probably like, for tabletop gaming, it's probably like the second biggest, right?
Yeah, I think it's probably the second biggest for sure. There's other ones that they've started to grow again. There was one time Gen Con and Origins were equal back in the 90s, and the Gen Cons just kind of put their foot on the accelerator and was able to grow. But Origins puts on a great show. The people there that I've dealt with that run the place, you can tell they've got a real commitment to want to like have fun for people. And it's really nice to work with them because their mindset is always how can we make this better for the players. That's really nice.
Lurie also mentioned that at Origins and Gen Con, you guys will be redoing one of your old modules.
At Gen Con, because of we thought it'd be nice to kind of do an intro module for people that are interested in playing without having to make the big commitment to the big bucks to spend and try one of to play N1, 2, or 3. They can play what's called Into the Viper's Pit, which we originally presented in 2014 there at Gen Con, but we're bringing it back and we're keeping it we're not allowing people to bring outside treasure tokens in. It's just the 10 that you get free with your run. So it's gonna try to keep the equipment and all that pretty simple, and it should be fun. It was a really well received module when we ran it back in 2014. It's got some really cool puzzles and some monsters that I think folks will like.
Oh no, the True Dungeon nerf.
Yeah.
That's really cool though. So, do you guys have anyone that's been that you know of anyway that's been participating since the beginning and still coming back?
Oh yeah, we've got experience points that people get every time they play an adventure. They can record it online, and we've got a list of the top 100 players that have earned the most XP. And yeah, there's a core of dozens of folks. I know of at least a dozen people that played every single year we've done it for 16 years. And there's probably more than I'm not even aware of. They haven't bothered to enter experience points in. So, yeah, it's when we started that first year, it was a kind of a last minute LARP thing. We had about 3 months to put it on, and we weren't even in the program book. You couldn't buy tickets for us. We had to sell our own tickets at the show, at the actual event entrance. So, but the word spread really fast, and we sold out. And the passion of those people that are still around 16 years later is pretty crazy. Nice. A lot of them turned into volunteers as well. One nice thing about the event is that people that play it and love it, they want to go the next step and be a part of it. I know people always say this about the clubs and stuff they're in, but when you get a bunch of people whose idea is a good time, is to make other people have a good time. That they're pretty cool people, and you want to hang out with them. And when you get like a couple hundred of them together, it's pretty neat to hang out there and just make friends.
You said there's something like 50 volunteers that help out at Gen Con?
Well, there's 50 or so that come in just to build it up for 3 days.
Okay.
And then we have another 200 come in and run the thing for 3 days, and then help tear it down on Sunday morning. So it's like 250 or so folks that come in to run it at Gen Con.
Next level 88. So this is like a D&D themed escape room. Yep, very much like that.
Yeah, it's funny. We were doing this long before escape rooms came along, and when they did, like 8 years ago, I was like, finally, I have something I can kind of like point to and say, this is kind of what we're like. So yeah, it's neat. The principal difference is with us is the way I designed it at the beginning is you've got 12 minutes to like solve the challenge. If you don't, then you just take a little damage and you move on. So to me, that's a lot more fun. I've been in escape rooms where, you're stuck. And you sit there for 30, 40 minutes and it's no fun. It's just frustrating. It'd be great if they set up the escape room so there was a limiter, like, well, after 10 minutes, if you don't have this puzzle, let's go on to the next thing, and you're having no fun. So that's what I like about our event compared to escape rooms. If you're stuck on something, 12 minutes later, you're going to be in a completely new room working on a completely new challenge. So it's a lot less frustrating sometimes.
That's the word I was going to use. That's a really great idea. It is frustrating. I mean, even like in a D&D game, and you present something to your players and they can't figure it out. It's only fun to beat your head against the wall for so long. Eventually, it gets old.
Yeah, and then what's also there's this built-in tension in the room. I mean, you can see it on people's faces when they're in there. They know they only have 12 minutes to solve it, and it really puts a lot of excitement and stress in the situation. Some people don't like that, however, and that's totally cool. That's not what they're, like. But for me, if you're going to play once a year, you want it to be pretty pulse pounding type of fun. And we actually have the last minute. We call it the "Better Get Your Butt Moving" song, and it's the music starts. It's real pulse pounding music, and the lights go red in the room, and it's like, oh my god, we got a minute, and it's great excitement. And when people solve like the puzzle with like 15 20 seconds, there's usually like a big cheer and they all jump. It's really fun to see. So I think we accidentally lucked into I think something that works pretty well.
So Zarif Gaming, any chance you guys are running games in Texas?
We should. We were down in San Antonio in January last year. We should be there again this year. We're talking with them now. Had a great time. We sold out. The people down there loved the event, the concept. The volunteers we got, the players, most of them were newbies. Had never even heard about True Dungeon. They just saw some of the advertising, some of the mentions on the PAX South site, and they came and played. And I'm real excited about what we can build down there because the community. I've heard Texas is like a big LARP community down there, and I think I can see why. Even though we're not a LARP, I think they like the immersion of the gaming that we provide. So, really excited.
Yeah, that really makes me think that'd be like a great place for a Watts partnership with you guys. It would give them, if they were to let you guys use Forgotten Realms or D&D theme it a bit more. It would give them more exposure to an audience that maybe isn't looking at tabletop games.
Yeah, we're talking to Alex is talking to them. He's he knows the development team there really well, and he's talking to them about ideas for the future. But I think something's in the works.
So Jeremy says, can't wait to see y'all at Gen Con. I'm volunteering for the first time. Super excited. Sounds like some good times.
Thanks, Jeremy. We'll see you there. That'll be awesome.
And Lori's helping out in the chat. You guys have been in Texas since 2016, I think, or 2017, right?
Yeah, we first year went down there. We did a quick little demo, and we had people lined up for 2 hours to try to do a little 24-minute demo. It was really cool. So we came back the next year and actually did 2 adventures and sold out. So I think there's definitely an appetite down there to have some True Dungeon fun.
DM Don wants to know, and actually DM Don actually runs a cool thing called Drunks and Dragons in Philly here, where they couple nights a month they have like D&D nights, gaming nights at pubs and taverns where they just take over a section of it.
Cool.
He wants to know, how do you balance it so everyone gets involved?
That is a great question, and that's what I beat my head on like every day when we're designing puzzles and combats, because we have to. It's a unique challenge. Come up with a lot of great puzzle ideas, and you realize, well, you're probably going to have like 3 people dominate the whole thing, and everybody else will be standing around watching them. So we always have to try to design the puzzles so it involves everybody. Everybody has to be involved. So everybody has to be like manipulating a dial or hitting an anvil with a hammer or something. We usually try to make it so, or we divide it up so, it's a thing where you need input from all 10 people, but everybody has to be involved in order to solve the puzzle. So yeah, we're definitely we try as much as we can to make that happen, because that to me is like the most fun. I hate it when I walk in and there's always like people that are more take charge. And if the puzzle's not designed well, you'll have 2 people doing it and 8 people standing over in the corner, talking to the DM or something. So we really avoid that as much as possible.
Yeah, I mean, it's tricky whenever you have a lot of people interacting. And again, it's not like who's coming through. So
sure.
you at least if you're running, a D&D game for your friends, you have the advantage of knowing the people that are going to show up.
Yeah, it's a challenge. I think we're getting better at it as we go throughout the years and get feedback and watch. I like to watch from behind the curtains and see how people interact with stuff. I think we've got a fairly good handle on it now.
I think so. You guys have been doing it for a little while.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't have this gray beard when we started, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, 16, it may be a contributing factor.
I think so. At least that's what I'm telling people.
So out of all the modules you guys have done so far, do you have a favorite?
Wow. Well, I mean,
We can even drill down to favorite encounter that you've created.
Yeah. This is going to sound cheesy, but my favorite module is the next one. I mean, it's like I'm always excited about what we're doing now, and I can't wait to like see people interact with stuff and have fun with it, because we're always trying to improve it. So I'm always wanting to see like how they're gonna enjoy the next thing. And the way we had done the event for many years, we would just show it once at Gen Con and then throw it away and make a new one. So we were always, as soon as that one was done at Gen Con, it was time to start thinking about the next one. But some of my favorite encounters, we had, early on we had a Medusa. That was kind of fun, because we basically had she was behind a curtain doing like a sultry dance, and most of the people didn't notice she had snakes in her hair because they were looking elsewhere, and then she'd open the curtain, and then the DM would look and see who looked at her, and everybody that was looking right at her, of course, would have to make a saving throw or get turned to stone. That was a fun, like, real world mechanic we could fit in there, and a strategy that the monster would use to get people to look. And it was really fun. People had a blast there. We've had some cool animatronics. We had this nice dragon, and we decided if we're going to have a dragon, we're going to make him really tough. And we made him really tough. Hardly anybody the whole weekend killed the dragon. The lucky part was, this was a funny part, Will Wheaton actually killed him. Well, we had this special weapon. They had this tiny little target you had to hit on this giant board. And for some reason, some miracle, the third round of the combat, right before the dragon was going to breathe and just fry everybody, smoke them all, he slid his special weapon and it landed right on that dot. And then the token had to be turned, had a 1 in 8 chance of being turned right a certain way. And it was, and he instant killed the dragon. It was amazing that it happened and everybody was cheering and it went crazy. That was a lot of fun. Excuse me.
I was surprised after that incident, Will Wheaton didn't begin a petition to try and change from a dice system to whatever system you're using, because he's so notoriously bad at rolling dice.
Yeah. It was amazing. I'm glad he did it because I think that way I could tell people it was possible to kill the dragon. So, because I got a lot of complaints it was too hard, and they were right. I made it too hard, but oh well, it was a dragon.
It's the last encounter anyway, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely the last encounter. But it's called Dungeons and Dragons, so people will want to kill the dragon. So we should have probably adjusted it a little bit so they could have at least had 10% people survive. But anyway, we learned from that. We've also had some cool stuff with just how the party interacted with NPCs. Like this year, we've got, I don't know if you've read any of the Pat Roth stuff, we've got a Felurian NPC character. She's kind of like a queen of this fairy world called the Fae. Kind of the queen. She's a royalty anyway, as far as we know. Anyway, there's a really cool interaction that the party has with her. She doesn't say a whole lot. She's got an attendant, but just watch the groups interact with her this year. It's been a lot of fun. And it's just, again, allows people to experience something that they can't get anywhere else, which is a really cool, immersive thing with an NPC.
Are all of your performers volunteers as well? Yeah.
We have a really nice, robust volunteer system. We have a lot of return people who've been doing it for over a decade. We got a night, like you get a free spot in a hotel room, which is attached to the convention center, which like at Gen Con's gold. You get a stipend for food and gas and that kind of thing, and a free badge. It's at Gen Con. The badges are $110 this year, so it's a nice. And then some tokens and some other freebies. So
honestly, I always say like the cost of the badges are nothing. It's getting there and staying there. That's the real cost. And if you're actually getting a room there, where Gen Con is, that's huge. Like I was lucky enough to score a room on the lottery, and I almost missed my slot to get my room. I just assumed I wasn't going to get one. And I was going through the motions, and I was like on the phone with someone, and I was like, "Oh, wait a minute, I have to go do this thing." And then and I got one that was like right there, and then talked to my buddy a couple hours later. He's so pissed. He's like, I couldn't get a room anywhere, and I had looked at the rooms like the previous year. Like looking at this one going, well, what if I just like, whatever, don't worry about the blocks and just want to rent a room? What does that cost? It was like $600 a night.
Yeah, they make their money there. That's for sure. It's crazy to see how much Gen Con's grown. It's definitely morphed into some kind of crazy thing with the how much people are now into gaming and fantasy and all that. It's great to see. When I started going back in the early '80s, it was mostly old war gamers that looked like us, and it was college kids and high school kids that were playing D&D. And all the old war gamers, didn't like the RPG guys, those young whippersnappers that were coming in. And it was, the exhibit hall was in a gymnasium that wasn't air conditioned. So it's changed a little bit, and it's grown, and it's nice to see that the hobby has gone from like a tiny little niche thing to something that's kind of mainstream now.
Well, as someone who's been around for a while through it all, what did you think of the museum they had put up last year?
I unfortunately only got the con crud for the first time ever at Gen Con. I've been to like 31 Gen Cons, and I never got sick except this one. So I only got to see it like half an hour, so I can't really comment. What I saw was awesome. I went down there Sunday. I was still sick. But I had to see it. And we had a giant there that we put up just to kind of show a prop that we had used as part of the Gen Con thing. But yeah, I really wish I could have got up to Gary Con earlier that year when they had that big party there at the horticultural hall where it all got started. But I was lucky enough in our early years of True Dungeon, we worked with Gary Gygax. He did the voiceovers for a couple of the intros. So I got to go up to his house, and we set up and recorded him doing the intros, and I got to meet him and all that. And he's a really cool guy, and he was like totally in love with the idea of what True Dungeon was, and that's why he's just like offered to do it for free. It was crazy.
Wow, those were definitely really cool. Last year was actually my first year doing Gen Con,
Yeah.
And I'm kind of late coming to the convention party, but I'm trying to make up for lost time now.
Sure. Yeah, it's a lot. They actually have like food now, which is nice. Back in the day, it was like when it was in Parkside, it was in the middle of nowhere. It was like a college that had was in, you know how they build community college type things. They always put them like in the middle of nowhere where the land's cheap.
Yeah.
There was like one place to eat, and it was like a cruddy student union type thing. Otherwise, you had to drive to a nearby town to get anything to eat. So it was definitely it's been an upgrade.
Yeah, like now all the restaurants kind of participate and make special menus, and they bring in all the food trucks. My buddy Doug, who runs the website for us, like that. I think that was what he was the most excited about, was for hitting the food trucks.
Yeah, I've tried. Just every time I seem to go, the lines are enormous, and I'm just always in a hurry. So I usually end up getting something bad for me somewhere. But I need to plan ahead. But yeah, the few times I've tried, I had this hero that's really awesome. Whatever. It was really nice. So yeah, I plan on trying to hit some of that again this year. They're adding a lot more over by Lucas Oil Stadium, I'm told. So instead of all being concentrated there in that one row, they're going to add some more.
Spread it out.
Yeah.
That's a good idea. Lori wants me to ask you about the sand table.
The sand table. Oh yeah, that's from Viper's Pit. That's that newbie adventure. It's probably one of the most well-received puzzles we ever did. I don't want to give too much away, but it's magic. It's really cool. You get to play with this sand table and magic happens. And so if you get a chance to play Viper's Pit at Gen Con, well, unfortunately all the tickets are already sold, but if you're going to go, you should have a good time.
So Zareth Gaming wants to know any chance for an Underdark themed True Dungeon?
Well, unfortunately, yeah, there was. We actually just did a couple last year. Well, for 2 years, we did an Underdark, and then we did a thing called the Deeper Dark, which is below the Underdark. So it was more of the first one was more of a classic Underdark theme we had giant mushrooms, and glowing crystals, and then the next year was all like lava stuff. But yeah, we've done the drow thing to death, so you shouldn't see drow for a while, or spiders. So I'm kind of tired of both of those. So unfortunately, he missed the boat on that one by about 2 years.
But who knows? Maybe they'll come back in the future.
Yeah, it's always popular for sure.
Well, you guys have a warehouse full of like all the props somewhere, so I imagine they'll resurface at some point.
Yeah, we for sure. Yeah, we keep most of the stuff, and there's always one of the fun things is always trying to like figure out a way to reuse a prop in a new and different way. So who knows what could happen.
So KB wants to know if you have any platinum passes, no lines.
Well, that's the funny part. We don't have lines ever. Everything is sold down. So like you buy a ticket, you walk in, you sit down, you wait exactly 0 seconds to play. We got it all designed well where the event starts every 12 minutes. So your ticket might say 8:50 or 8:48. And at 8:48, you'll be in a room marked 8:48 and your coach will say, "Welcome to True Dungeon. Let's play." So no waits. It's really cool.
That is really cool. So what is it set times? Well, I guess, pardon me, I guess as well, like you said, like, each section is 12 minutes. So you guys kind of know how long it's going to take.
Yeah, it seemed like when we designed it, seemed like the logical way to do it. So yeah, we basically have this giant machine that clicks every 12 minutes and the groups move into the new rooms. They never see each other because there's these antechambers between them. But yeah, it's a well-oiled machine. We start at 8:30 in the morning at Gen Con, and our last group leaves like at 1:30 in the morning. And it's just continues. The wheel keeps turning, and it runs really well.
How long into the process did it take you guys to come up with that?
Well, this is going to sound weird, but the whole thing was designed in like 2 hours in a pickup truck driving around Southern Illinois, backcountries. For some reason, I think people should do this whenever they need to do creative problem solving. Just jump in a car and drive. Something about that for me frees up some part of my brain, and it lets me really. And I had a friend along, and he took notes, and we just basically dreamed like what would we want to play and how we'd want to do it, and we wrote it all down, and that was it. It was done. Pretty much all that. It was all done, and that's how it was done.
And that now, did that come about after? So we kind of like touched on this last time, but I guess it's worth jumping into a little bit this time as well, just because other people that weren't here before are probably here. But originally True Dungeon started as almost like a gamer reunion.
Yeah, I live in a college town, so all these really cool folks would come in, and they'd go to school, graduate, and leave. And I was like, man, it'd be great to get everybody back together again. So in 1997, I had, or six, I don't remember, I had a thing called Giant City Con, which was like 8 of us, I think. And I just tried to get old friends to come back and play. We rented a cabin out at the Giant City State Park, and we gamed all Halloween weekend. Had a great time. I wanted to make it special, so I made this cool props for the AD&D adventure that I was running. I think I got like a rabbit fur and wrote some clues on it, and did this staff I made out of this stick I found. And anyway, over the years, I kept doing this event, and it grew and grew and grew, where I started finally, like 5 years later, I'd actually create the final room in a hotel suite out of wood and studs and plywood and stuff. And I talked Peter Atkinson to come, who was the owner of Gen Con at the time. He had heard about me from Stefan Picorni, the guy that owns Dwarven Forge, and because he was wanting to have a cool event at his new location in Indianapolis, which was in 2003. He was like, hey, I want to have I've got all this room now that we didn't have in Milwaukee. Let's make it like a big maze. So Stefan hooked him up with me. I really wanted to make a big impression on him to get him to come to my little con, which was again like 12 or 15 people, friends. So I sent him an exploding scroll tube. I made this really cool looking ancient scroll tube, and when you opened it up, it had some Chinese firecrackers in it, so it exploded. It made quite an impression, and it had an invitation inside, and he actually showed up. He didn't get a restraining order on me.
That's always. It would have been a much different mail delivery in this day and age, I think.
Yeah. Well, he was he totally got the concept. He jumped on a little plane, flew into Little Marion, Illinois, and he played the adventure. Got to see kind of what I could kind of do, and then we had pancakes the next day at Bob Evans, and he was like, "Let's do it." And he gave us like $5,000, I think it was, to buy supplies and whatever we needed, and that was like in March, and the event was in August or July at the time, so there wasn't much time. So that's kind of how it all got started, and how things have grown since. Now we have like 8,000 tickets that sold out in about an hour at Gen Con a couple weeks ago.
Well, I guess that is the thing. So is there any like because you always sell out. But if someone is interested, is there any kind of like wait list or anything they can get on in case people cancel or?
Yeah, there's always no shows. People, forget, or they sleep in, or whatever happens, and they just don't show up. And there's a policy, we have to wait 5 minutes. So if your event starts at 10 o'clock, at 10:05, we can get people off a wait list. And usually what we do, we just have somebody with a clipboard going around. They get their name and cell phone number and just tell them to hang out in the area. And once they do, if we have an opening, we'll call their cell phone and have them come. If they have generics in their hand, they can just drop the generics and play. So it probably happens, I don't know, 15, 20 times during the weekend. So if you got the patience, especially I would try the mornings. That's when people mostly flake, is the mornings. You may be able to get in.
Those late nights.
Yeah.
Yeah,
for sure.
I see you got a bit of a cough too. Me too. I don't know if I think it's the pollen this year.
Yeah, I think the pine's really bad down here right now. And I was outside earlier before here doing some yard work, so I think that's probably not a wise choice.
I'm trying to avoid that if I can.
Yeah.
Outside. I just retired from working outside for pretty much most of my life, so I've had enough of it for a while.
Yeah, well, you got a good hobby here, job right now, so it's great.
Yeah.
Indoors and make videos. It's great.
Master of the Game, True Dungeon sounds amazing. Absolutely, it absolutely does. So, yeah, either Origins or Gen Con one of these years, I'm going to definitely have to try and make it out there and check you guys out in person.
Yeah, coming out, I'll give you the big tour, and you can see everything. It's hard to describe it. It's best just to see it in person. I mean, we have videos. If you go to YouTube, you can search True Dungeon and find all kinds of videos. But like I said, we're constantly making it better and better. So as some of the videos that are 3 or 4 years old are kind of out of date now, we've upped things from there. Especially this year with the new stuff. It should be amazing. If anybody is interested, there's plenty of tickets available for Origins next month. Just go to td.events. There's no .com. It's just td.events. So you can go there and you can buy tickets for there. You still have to buy a Origins badge eventually, but you can buy the tickets directly from us.
That's funny because just as you were saying it, almost simultaneously, Lori was typing in the chat.
She's keeping me out of trouble. That's good. Yep. Thanks.
Yeah, she's definitely got your back over there. Well, me and my wife will be at Origins, so I'm definitely gonna have to check that out, especially if there's still tickets left. So, you guys are at Origins. You're at Gen Con. What's after Gen Con? There's nothing in between, I imagine.
No. Then we hop on the interstate and head up to Madison, Wisconsin, like the second weekend in November. That's Alex's convention up there. It's a smaller con, but it's really well done, and it's got the best thing I like about it. It's in Wisconsin, so there's a bunch of the old guys. Like if you want to play Top Secret with Merle Rasmussen, you can play the guy that wrote the game. You could play with him if you want, or you can. I got to play like some of the old AD&D modules. I got to play with some of the Alan Hammock. I got to play S2, I think it was, with him. That was amazing, but a bunch of fun. And it's also they've got, believe it or not, he's got food trucks there too, which is amazing. So there's really good food at this place, but it's a lot more low key. So it's not as crazy, but yeah, there should be plenty of tickets available for that. Those will go on sale about the time Gen Con starts, about the 1st of August.
Nice. We'll actually be there too. The whole Nerdarchy crew will be at Gamehole Con as guests. We'll be hanging out with the Fraga Games guys, or folks, I should say.
You'll have a good time up there. And then after that, we should be going to PAX South. We're talking to them right now. That's in like mid-January usually, down in San Antonio. It's a long ways to go, but from what the response we got over the last couple of years, I think it's something that's we're going to be able to grow pretty well, and it's going to be a really cool community down there.
So, do you guys have any plans to try and look at PAX Unplugged? It's really close to Gamehole Con. I imagine that one would be tough.
Yeah, and there's some other issues that real world type stuff where we have to, usually it's like union issues that can be a problem. Because of the size of our event and the complexity of getting the sets up, we rely on like a swarm of volunteers to come in and
unions love that.
Yeah, so yeah, it's not a insurmountable obstacle, but there'll be a lot of issues to work out if we were ever to come to Philly or a place like that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure if you pay some extortion fees, they'll let you do your thing. I used to work in road construction.
Yeah,
and we were a non-union shop, and we had to deal with unions all the time. In the middle of July, we'd have to pick up a union guy, or in the middle of the summer, and any union guy that's not working that you get in the middle of the summer is not a great person to have on your site. Like I had to throw one of them off for drinking on the job. So, wow. And then there's other things like where my boss would have to pay benefit packages for each of his guys working on a job.
Sure.
To the union, but those guys would never see any of that. It just would go to the union. I mean, in other arenas, they'd probably call it extortion, but there's some good things for sure, and things can always get out of hand no matter what happens. But corruption's everywhere. When you get people involved, that's when things get messed up.
Yeah, or if they're in the state of Illinois where I live, so yeah, we know how that goes.
Yeah, but I digress. Enough real world stuff. Thankfully, I don't have to deal with that anymore.
Yeah, I mean, the people that we have dealt with, though. I mean, at Indy and all the other places we go, the union folks that we have worked at, they're all professional. It's just when we're required to use them when we have to. That's where it basically says we can't go to that convention. So because we just don't have the time or the funding to be able to afford a lot of union help to put on the event.
Well, yeah, that's going to drive the cost way through the roof.
Yeah, and just the time too. I mean, we've used them before, like when we went SoCal, Gen Con SoCal back when it was running in the early 2000s. We had to use some decorator union guys to help set it up, and just because they weren't familiar with the system, it was really slow work going. So we wouldn't be able. We'd have to run 24 hours a day, and that would cost huge amounts just to get the event up in time.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to go into a location with all new people and be like, here, set this thing up that you've never seen before, compared to where you guys already have your teams and crews who have been doing it before, and can just go in there and they know what to do and bang it out.
Yeah, we got a great crew of build crew. They've been doing, many of them have been doing over 10 years, and they know the drill and they can get it up fast.
Cavern. Any plans on making a stationary location in the future to have more complex rooms with the popularity of escape rooms increasing? How does True Dungeon plan to compete?
Well, I don't see us competing. I mean, I don't live in a metropolitan area. I live in a nice little mid-sized college town that we really like. And my parents lived nearby, and so I chose to stay here. And I really like the area. It's a great place for my kids to grow up, but we just don't live in a population area that would support any kind of permanent thing. So unless I someday move, I don't think that's ever going to happen. So, but I don't think we have to compete. If anything else, it's more like escape rooms are kind of advertising for us. Now people can play escape rooms and they'll kind of get the concept of what True Dungeon's kind of about. Only we have a simulated combat and some other stuff that they don't have.
Now it's escape rooms problem to try and explain to people what escape rooms are. Where you guys can go, because escape rooms are now a little bit more mainstream, you guys can go, it's like an escape room, only if you mash it up with Dungeons and Dragons.
Right. Yeah. I used to, back before they came along, I was like, do you remember that the ending of the first Harry Potter movie where you had to go through those rooms and fight the chessmen and then get the key? It's sort of like that. Or the end of Indiana Jones 3 where they had to Penitent Man and then they had to go across the bridge with the symbols on it. It's sort of like that. So, yeah, but now the escape rooms came along, it's a little easier to explain for sure.
I don't know. Maybe the True Dungeon franchises for your stationary locations.
Yeah, I mean, we've had people talk to us, believe it or not, about it. I mean, you might see something pop up at Wisconsin Dells someday. Who knows? But we'll see.
Yeah, I imagine that's tough, especially if you have a core group that kind of works on it. Like you said, you're not in a very populous area, so it would be hard to do if you were someplace like. A major metropolitan area, you could do something like that and have a constant influx of people. Unless you're going to build the True Dungeon mecca.
Yeah, if we were up by Chicago, I'd love to get an old warehouse and we'd be able to make an amazing adventure. We would use wooded studs and have ceilings, and we could do something really, really cool. It'd be a lot of fun, but it's just not in the works right now for the lifestyle we want.
So at this point, do you seek out conventions and events to run True Dungeon at, or are you guys popular enough now they generally seek you guys out?
Well, for many years, first 12 years, we didn't really go any other place. Again, I had small kids and we didn't really want to grow. I was happy what we were doing. We were selling out every year and we were having a blast doing it and everybody was happy. But recently, as the kids got a little older and I've decided we've expanded, me and Lori have expanded it out. But we haven't really gone after anybody. They just kind of come to us, and we kind of entertain offers. But a lot of just depends on like where it fits in the schedule and that kind of thing. We could maybe add one other con, maybe in the spring sometime. But right now, I think we're pretty happy with what we got.
Complacent Badger is our intern, and he's got a question. Have you seen Wizard Quest in Wisconsin Dells?
No, somebody told me about it though, and I definitely would like to try it out sometime if I ever get up there. I haven't been. I grew up in Northern Illinois, so we went to Wisconsin Dells a few times growing up. So I remember a really cool fun house there and going on the boats and all that stuff. But someday I'll make it up there.
So DM Don, I think we've already kind of discussed this, but I'll just throw it out there anyway. Do you run something all year or only con seasons? It's just the con season pretty much, but the con season is like 12 months.
Yeah, we say the season starts at Gen Con, and then runs around. It's a little. We actually premiere one of the modules this year at Origins just for our production sanity. Trying to launch 3 brand new huge modules at once is pretty tough. So we're to do a better job of that. We're going to premiere at. Sorry, I got some pop up. We're going to premiere one of them at Origins and then 2 of them at Gen Con and kind of do it that way. We're going to try it that way. It seems to keep us more sane.
So Miles wants to know how exactly you simulate combat aspect work. I'm having difficulty picturing it.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, when we were driving around in the rural hills of Southern Illinois trying to figure out how the heck we're going to do combat, we didn't want to do dice because that's, not that immersive. It's not the concept of true dungeon where it's you against the event. We couldn't really do boffer weapons. It's not very accessible, and people get kind of crazy and silly about it. So we wanted something that was hand and eye coordination, right? Something that if you're a good attacker, a good physical attacker, then you'll be good for your party. So we thought about darts, but that seemed dangerous. So the best thing we came up with, which worked out really well, is kind of a shuffleboard type system. We have like a big 8-foot long table, and you take your token, which is the size of like a poker chip, and you put it in this slightly larger thing that we made that's got a magnet that holds it. It's 3D printed, and it's got the name of your character class in it, and it's got like a felt slider thing on the bottom. And you take this puck and you slide it down, and the monster silhouette is divided up into zones, and it goes from like 1 to 20, like on a classic D20. So if you want to try to score a critical, it's usually like around the eye or the head or something, whatever would be applicable for that monster. So the better you are at hand-eye coordination of sliding these pucks, the better of a fighter you're going to be. So what's really cool about the event is to do well, you need some really smart folks to do the puzzles, and then you need some people that have really good hand and eye coordination to survive your fights. And there's also some cool team tactics involved with shuffleboard, because it simulates like a bunch of characters are attacking a big monster. You can imagine you're like the rogue, and you like take a stab at the giant. He jumps back out of your way, but then that allows the barbarian to hit him in the back with like his axe. So to simulate that, pucks can actually bump other pucks. So your barbarian might slide first and miss and slide like a 14, but then the rogue can make a slide and bump his up to a 20, and then he ends up critical hitting the thing. So what's really neat is that even though you've slid, everything can change in a blink of an eye, because they can kind of ricochet off each other, and you don't really know what the final outcome is going to be till the last person slides.
So we get another question. Was there any, this one's from Kurt, was there any aspect of past True Dungeon that you thought was really cool, but it was just too challenging to justify doing it again?
Fog. We had 1 year, I think it was 2010, we were in Greyhawk walking around, and you had to get to this you were wanted by the town guard and you were going through the sewers to get there. You were sneaking around. So we thought it'd be cool to put fog in the sewers. And then ended up being a big maintenance headache. Plus we had to do a fire watch. We had to pay the fire marshal to come in and sit down and hang out. And it's always scary when you invite the fire marshal to hang out your event for 16 hours a day, because they needed to be there to be the human smoke detector type thing, which, it's understandable. It's just kind of scary. But everything went well. Everybody there was cool, but it was just the stress of that and having to maintain all the fog machines. We were trying to use fog chillers, which used ice to make the fog hang low. That was something that I vowed I'd never do again, ever. And we're doing it this year.
Nice. And to be clear, you didn't burn anything down.
No, we didn't. We almost set a smoke detector off. They shut off the smoke detectors, of course, in the ballroom we were in. And then somebody opened up one of the doors to the utility hallway, which caused a bunch of fog to flow into there. And if that would have went off, the smoke detector would have went off, it would have been a mandatory evacuation. And, the fire department would have showed up. It scared me. So yeah, I closed the doors and prayed that the smoke detector would not go off.
Yeah, you needed to send a bunch of people in there with their D&D books to fan it away.
Yeah, for sure. Inhale.
Yeah. That's funny. Do the opposite and inhale deeply.
I guess one other thing in the past we've tried to use, like one year we had these really cool medallion necklaces that the party recovered, like in room 3, and they carried it with them to the end, and it was just we had a lot of them disappear. I think some of the people didn't even realize they were still wearing it or whatever. They thought they got to keep it, but yeah, we very rarely do that now. It's just a huge maintenance issue to try to recover them and get them back to the room where they start and all that. So
then you need security on the way out to check people.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, it's crazy, but
the true dungeon police. Nice. So so what are you most excited for coming up? I guess on the next show is going to be Origins.
Yeah, I guess it's just, I think Pat's going to be there. As people said, Pat Ralph is, if you haven't read his books, you should. They're different. They're really, you can tell why it takes him 10 years to write one. They're crafted. I mean, you can read them like one time and, have a fun time, but you can like pick them apart and really enjoy them that way. But I think he's going to be there. This will be the last chance for people to play in his adventures. And he was real great to work with. And, I just hope people, if they're a fan of the book or if they're interested in some cool story, fun adventure stuff, they should show up at Origins and play it while you have a chance. This is the last time. And then I'm really excited at Origins too. We're premiering the Astral Adventure, the N1 monster, or that N1 module. And we just tested out some of the sets yesterday, and it's going to be crazy. I think people are going to really like them. And we got some cool puzzles lined up, and the end room is going to blow people's minds. So we'll have to keep a mop and a bucket around.
So do you guys have to be cognizant of what monsters you use, or have you been able to get away with using like D&D monsters?
We just tried it. When we first started, we were using like all the classic D&D monsters, because people wanted to fight, like a troll and a giant and all that stuff. As time has gone on, we've kind of just gone more generic type stuff that we can, because like a lot of times we'll see an animatronic monster that we really think looks cool and it fits medieval fantasy, but it doesn't really fit a classic D&D monster. So we'll come up with our own, we'll call it like a dire beast or a frost worm or something like that.
So KB wants to know, how do I volunteer? Which is a really good question. Others might want to know this.
Well, that's good. Good question. We just launched this year another website called tdvols.com, tdvols.com. And you can go there. You first have to create an account, and then you can fill out an application for all the different cons you want to volunteer at. But It's a little bit of work at the beginning to set up your account, but it's kind of once that's done, then you can apply to conventions for the next several years with little or no work. So,
is there a waiting list to become a volunteer?
Usually in the years past, we've been it's like miracles upon miracles. We get pretty much the exact number of volunteers we need. But starting with, since we got this new website up, tdvols.com, starting at PAX, we had plenty of volunteers. We actually turned some folks down, and at Origins, we had to do the same thing. At Gen Con, I think we've got a wait list now of people. But what happens is, life happens and people have to cancel. They either get a new job or lose a job or somebody gets sick. So if you're on the wait list, you may get an email from us in June or July saying, hey, we've got a spot for you now. So if you're still interested, let us know. So fill it out and you never know.
So it turns out that people just didn't know how to volunteer previously.
Well, yeah, before we had a woo-foo type form, an online form thing that didn't work so well. But this is and it's nice because we've got the system set up so that like at the convention, like an hour before your shift starts, you'll get a text saying, hey, your shift starts in an hour. Be sure that you do this and then, wear some comfortable shoes and make sure you stay hydrated and all that stuff, and remind them that their shift starts in an hour.
Excellent. That brings us up on the hour mark, which is good because I'm like choking on pollen in my throat now, I think, anyway. And as always, Jeff, I want to thank you for coming on. Thanks for being a repeat guest, and thanks everyone for hanging out in the chat and watching today. Go check out True Dungeon. As always, in the description, you can find links to follow what's going on. And until next time, stay nerdy.
Take care.